So, ladies and gents, Godzilla vs. Kong has been released. It's a smash hit, 285 million worldwide or something insane like that. Smashing it in the US on its opening COVID weekend, smashing pandemic records, loads of garbage. Like, it's just doing really, really well. Whether you like or dislike it, that's an inarguable fact. It is doing really, really well, financially speaking. Now, one of the great things of any movie that comes out is always just learning bits about it, especially if it's something you're interested in. And Godzilla vs. Kong was one I was interested in. And when I heard this and the other piece of news that we'll discuss in a moment, I was like, okay, all right, interesting. It gives me a greater insight into, well, just general bits of how this film came to be. This one, for instance, 5 hours of Godzilla and Kong footage. I mean, what? That's insane. There was also, again, part of the other article we'll cover in a moment, how the director had said, yeah, no, there was a post-credit scene filmed, but we actually just worked it into the film itself, which is interesting. And then how the director, Legendary, and everyone else involved got around Toho's very stringent requirements. I've said in many videos, Toho are very, very strict. They have final say. They have final approval on all of these films, and there's a lot that you have to get around them. But it would seem that the director has now revealed a little bit about that as well, which is fascinating stuff. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. The director revealing bits and pieces about Godzilla vs. Kong. Before we do, ladies and gents, just got to say this real quick. I am selling the Blu-ray of Blackfields. It released here on the channel on Saturday. The film anyway, but there is a Blu-ray, limited edition Blu-ray, which has an hour-long film about the film, how it got made, interviews, behind the scenes, loads and loads of stuff. There's loads of extras on that Blu-ray, including the soundtrack as well, concept art, the film itself, Bjorn and Frida, loads and loads of stuff. So you can find a link to it down below in the description box. It ships worldwide. It's only available up until the 3rd of May, and it will never be sold again. Because Blu-rays are just a pain in the ass to make, basically, if you're an independent filmmaker. So, never want to make it again. That's why it's a limited edition. So, grab your copy now whilst you can. But, again, that's linked down below in the description box. Let's dive into this, though. And all these articles are linked down below as well, underneath that Blu-ray link. But let's see. Look, so Adam Wingard has filmed 5 hours worth of Godzilla vs. Kong footage. Now, like, it's not uncommon that there's a lot of unused footage, but 5 hours? I mean, the film was just under, well, 2 hours basically, right? So there's extra 3 hours of footage. I mean, that's insane. Now, a lot of people, and even this article notes it as well, and they're like, oh, well, yeah, because of the Snyder Cut, maybe we'll get an Adam Wingard cut. And it's like, no, shut up, calm down. Even the director sits here and says, no, I'm very happy with that film, actually. I don't want a different version of it. That is the version that I'm happy with. So that's good, because obviously recently we've seen directors go up against studios way too much recently. Whether you think that's good or bad, it's good to see a director and a studio having a cohesive vision. And I don't think that's something you can argue with. It's good when the studio hires a director with the same vision as them. So there's no butting heads, there's no creative differences. People are just on board, and that to me signifies a much better production. You know, they're all just working together on that singular thought process, and that's fantastic. So anyway, he spoke to Den of Geek, right? And he said there's certainly enough footage to make a 5-hour version of this film. I'm sure, but making a longer version, a longer film is easier than making a shorter film in a lot of ways. For me, this is the version that worked the best, and I don't see any reason to do a director's cut. Probably the only thing if 10 years from now, somebody said, hey, do you want to do a director's cut of Godzilla vs. Kong? I would probably just use that time to have another 40 days in the sound mix, because I just love that kind of thing. So he's basically just saying, no, I'd like to do some more sound mixing. What? Like, that's crazy. But I think that's great. And he continues further and says, look, we did shoot more, and there were other parts of the plot that we cut out. There were other actors and stuff. I mean, Lance Reddick is top billed in the film because he used to be in the movie more, but his role is very small because we tweaked a couple of plot points. Unfortunately, sometimes just a tweak of the plot means that whole scenes have to go because they don't fit anymore. ultimately all the stuff we shot was just stuff that worked on its own merits. I think some of it did work, some of it didn't work, but most importantly, it wasn't supporting the movie as a whole and the experience that I wanted to give people. I think that's great. I think that's really, really good. And then the article notes as well and says Wingard capped the interview off by saying he never wanted the film to surpass 2 hours and that he likely would not make a director's cut even if given the chance. And yeah, longer doesn't always mean better, like at all. So I think these comments are great. A lot of people have said, oh, it's 100% Warner Brothers. Legendary are the guys that made this film. Warner Brothers just distribute it. They've only got a 25% stake. But people have noted Warner Brothers' affinity for under 2 hours, like films under 2 hours. I don't think that's the case here. This would all just be Legendary. But anyway, look, we have more. Adam Wingard reveals a post-credit scene for Godzilla vs. Kong was filmed. Because we did have some reveals from one of the writers who said, yeah, we spoke about a post-credit scene, but nah, it didn't look like something we were going to include because this is a closing of a chapter. It's very happy as it is, and that's fine. But now then we get more information from the director himself, who comes out and says, yeah, we did actually film one. So he says, we originally shot a post-credit scene, but then we ended up using the footage in the actual movie. It was one of those things. When we were doing our final stage in the editing, we realised we didn't have a strong enough ending. Without giving too much away, the actual ending of the film is from footage that we had taken from a post-credit scene. Being crafty, in an indie movie way, we actually ended up using that. So, I'm thinking to myself, is this him referencing the monarch down in the Hollow Earth? Like, I don't know. Is this referencing them saying, you know, Godzilla and Kong just going their separate ways? I would imagine it's the Hollow Earth situation. And I think that's a good way to cap it. It's like, well, we know where Kong is now. He's in the Hollow Earth, and that sort of progresses nicely from there. But it's not clear-cut, but I would say it's probably that. Still interesting, nonetheless. Now here's what we get on to the most interesting part, and I do think this is the most interesting part. It's the requirements for Toho, basically. Toho had pretty stringent requirements for every single film involving Godzilla. They have always had stringent requirements. And Adam Wingard reveals one of them. And it is interesting. It's fascinating, actually. So he says, one of them, for instance, is that they don't want Godzilla to emote. They see him as like this godlike force of nature, and so to them, it's out of character if you have him reacting in a normal way to things. But there's always ways around it. We definitely have some moments where I think Godzilla is more emotive in this film than he has been in any of the MonsterVerse movies. We just had to get clever with it, and I think that sometimes that stuff is kind of presented to you in a very kind of brick wall kind of way. But if you just do certain things and present it to them just right, and if they're on board with the movie, they seem to give us plenty of leeway. And I remember speaking to Mike Doherty about this, and he was telling me about the Mothra scene. So originally, Mothra actually had killed someone, and Toho were like, no, you can't have that. Mothra is a protector. Like, no, Mothra does not kill. Obviously, when she came out of the egg, the sort of chrysalis, the cocoon. And so what he did was then have, in a cheeky roundabout kind of way, was have Mothra pick up a dude and throw him into a nearby wall where he hits a spider's web. And in Mike's head, he's then later eaten by a giant spider. So that was his like roundabout way of doing it, which I found utterly fascinating and very, very hilarious. But this is a similar thing, you know. It's how can we get around their requirements and still give the movie that we want to give, whilst also pleasing them. Ultimately, the guys who can say yay or nay. You know, it's that old gladiatorial yay, nay, like that sort of thing. And it's just interesting. It's interesting that they say, well, we don't like him to emote. I'm thinking back to all the other movies. Like, he definitely emoted in some way or another, didn't he? Let's be honest. Adam Wingard is right. He says that he emotes more here than he has done in any of the other MonsterVerse movies. But I actually don't think that's beneficial. I feel like the animalistic sort of like huffs and puffs that he did in King of the Monsters was much better than Godzilla vs. Kong's emoting. But that's just personal preference. But I hand it on over to you. What do you think, ladies and gents? To me, it's always fascinating. I love this kind of stuff. And I cannot wait to get the art and making of books. And also those new comics that will be released as well. So let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Thanks so much. Take care.